Hey y'all, welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be talking about something a little different. I've seen a criticism, or probably more accurately a deflection, come up recently that's not new, but something I've seen resurface again that I just wanted to talk about. So first off, I'm sure most people who participate in online music discourse in any form are familiar with Anthony Fantano. And if you're up to speed on who he is, then you may have heard of his recent drama or beef or whatever he's got going on with the musician Halsey over a review he did on one of her albums a little over a year ago. Now, don't worry, this video is not about that, but with all the talk surrounding the situation, I've actually seen the criticism or deflection really come up again recently that I've heard not only about Fantano before, but really about just kind of critical analysis of music in general. Also, before I get into it, just keep in mind this video is not like a defense of Fantano or anything. I don't really have any strong feelings about him one way or the other. He has some takes I agree with.
Woo, yeah, I agree with that.
And he has some takes I disagree with.
Boo, I disagree. Boo.
I only bring him up because one, if I'm being honest, now I can put him in the thumbnail. And two, it's this drama or whatever that he's gotten himself into with Halsey that's sort of reminded me of this deflection in the first place. And that deflection can be boiled down to basically so-and-so shouldn't be allowed to criticize music because they don't play any instruments or they aren't a musician. Which in my opinion is just a brain-dead deflection mainly used by hardcore fans to dismiss any criticism of their favorite artist, and by the artists themselves to avoid any constructive criticism to, maybe go into improving their craft and making it better. So I guess looking into it, I guess Fantano does play the bass, so that criticism against him doesn't even really count because he does play an instrument. But regardless, that doesn't change the fact that this opinion has been said before about many other people who criticize not only music, but pretty much any form of art in general. Because this type of deflection isn't just used for music, it's used when defending movies, video games, TV shows, you name it. It's a lazy dismissal of otherwise valid criticism that assumes if you don't know the technical aspects behind the creative process of making art, then you don't know enough to have any criticism about that. For example, if you watch a big budget movie made by a huge multi-billion-dollar company that's been making movies since your grandparents were in diapers, and you notice some sloppy CGI that sticks out like a sore thumb, so you call it out for looking bad, you'll have diehard fans, and in some cases even directors or people who worked on the film, say, well, you're not a special effects artist, so you don't have any right to criticize it because you don't know all the work that goes into it. Or the classic, let's see you do better then. And the same logic applies to music. If you're a musician, then you can't have any critiques about any music because you don't create music. At least that's how these people feel until you criticize an artist that they also don't like. You may be thinking, okay, but ultimately, who cares? What effect does it have on me if diehard fans and lazy creators are using that type of deflection to dismiss any criticism? Well, the more obvious and direct answer to that question is you get shittier music, video games, movies, everything. But also, if that type of thinking becomes more prevalent within the general population, not within these diehard fandoms or lazy creators who have already made it and don't need to try anymore, it can actually have some pretty disastrous effects. For one, it discourages critical thinking. Critical analysis of art is critical thinking, and when people are trying to discourage you from thinking about and analyzing art, they're implying that you should just mindlessly consume it regardless of quality. And dumbing down a population makes them easier to control. Andrew Breitbart, a journalist and political commentator who founded Breitbart News, used to say that politics is downstream from culture. Now, I don't care for this Breitbart guy. He was a rage baiter and a fearmonger who introduced the world to Ben Shapiro by hiring him as a writer.
Give me everything you got for this wet-ass pee. A bucket and a mop? Fortunately, I know a doctor, who's my wife.
But I do 100% agree with this quote. Breitbart used that quote in the sense of wanting to influence culture to therefore influence politics. We see this happen all the time where powerful people will try to make certain ideas or behaviors either culturally accepted or culturally rejected in order to influence political policy. And when that does happen, there's little to no pushback from the public, and in some cases, there's even support for it because it was already normalized within the culture, albeit artificially. Simply put, if someone wants to change political policy or law with minimal pushback from the public, they'll train you to think or feel a certain way about it first, and then the rest will happen naturally. Now, if that isn't bad enough, this idea of you have to be a musician in order to criticize music, or you have to be a film director in order to criticize film, is a self-destructive and poisonous way of thinking on a societal level. If we truly begin to believe in this idea that you can't criticize anything without having given it a try yourself, then it gives precedent to the idea that you can't criticize, say, the president unless you have been president. You can't criticize your senators and representatives unless you have been one. Do you see how that's a slippery slope? Now, we do have the First Amendment, which protects our right to free speech, among other things, from being prohibited by the government. But if the general population's attitude becomes, well, if I've never been president, then I shouldn't question or criticize the president, then there ultimately won't be much pushback when the First Amendment gets repealed, or at the very least, updated. To sum it up, since politics is downstream from culture, you can inject anti-intellectual thinking or attitudes into society and normalize them, so that way there's minimal pushback during the slow and gradual process in transitioning from a democratic republic to an authoritarian state. Now, as a music channel, this isn't stuff I normally talk about, but when there's such a clear connection between this anti-intellectual attitude towards critical thinking and authoritarianism, I can't help but point it out and explain how the former leads to the latter. I guess the moral of this video is the dumber you are, the easier you are to control. So go read a book, explore new ideas and different opinions, and never stop thinking about stuff. But that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.